Hello and welcome back to the Now We Know Show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learned something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zach.
And I'm Buzz. And there's no Jack this week because he's off doing something interesting somewhere else, whatever he's doing. And on this week's episode, it's going to be our first episode on the subject of what is a superfan. That's what we're going to try in a series of podcasts.
Try and kind of define what is a superfan. If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, why not support Zach Wylde Productions on our Patreon page? Become an official ZWP patron for as little as £1 a month for exclusive early access to all our latest episodes, videos, behind the scenes, updates and more.
So, what is a superfan? Now, in order to help us answer this question for our first episode on the subject, we've invited a very special guest into the studio. Please welcome Toby Jewell.
Hello there.
Hiya, Toby.
How are you doing?
Let's explain to the listeners why we invited you in. We've got superfans, let's face it, are so many different subjects these days, whether it's be Harry Potter, football, pop bands,
Marvel.
Marvel, Star Trek, blah, blah, blah. Another one which is close to our hearts is Doctor Who. And that's why we asked Toby in, because Toby, we asked ourselves, we sat down and said, well, we need somebody to come in who we would consider to be a superfan. And what we're trying to find out is exactly what that means. And so we thought, well, okay, who could we ask in first of all? And we thought, well, we started ticking the old tick boxes. And we said, well, let's ask Toby in, because as far as we were concerned, you are a superfan. And then when I contacted you about it, and you were very kind enough to say you'd come into the studio to do this, you actually said...
Well, I was very honoured that you'd asked me, but I did say straight away, but I'm not a superfan. In my opinion.
in your opinion, which is a really great way to start, because, looking in, we thought, yeah, Toby's a superfan, and then you're saying you're not. So what we're going to do in this particular episode is literally run with it right from the first time you started to get into Doctor Who, and see by the end of the episode where it's taken us and whether you are a superfan or whether we can get somewhere near to understanding what is a superfan. What is a superfan? So Toby, start off right at the beginning. Because of your age, you're about the same age as me.
21.
Your dad told you all about classic Who.
Indeed.
Yeah, so obviously you got into Doctor Who back in the 70s or 60s.
70s.
Early 70s.
Yeah. Just sort of when John Pertwee left and Tom Baker came in, and then sort of growing up, John Pertwee became Wells of Gummidge, which I loved as a kid as well. Yeah, but Tom Baker ultimately became my favourite Doctor because he was on it for so long, and because I was a very impressionable kid at those days with not much else on television.
Well, we only had 3 channels.
Exactly.
Then 4 channels.
Yeah.
So Doctor Who started... What was it about Doctor Who that sort of, as a child, sort of drew you in?
I just think it was the sort of the fantasy element, maybe trying to get away from the mundaneness of life, because I just remember the early 70s as being very sort of grey still recovering from the atrocities that happened a couple of decades before, and we're still trying to rebuild the country, and it seemed a little desolate everywhere, but it was very, sort of on television, it was like bright and exciting, if you like, for a child.
Question. Do you remember Doctor Who? See, when I think of Doctor Who, back in the 60s, of course, you're thinking of William Hartnell and black and white. But my initial memories of the 70s Who, again, was still black and white because we had a black and white TV.
Oh, okay. It was colour for me.
Colour for you.
It was colour, but at the same time, a lot of other stuff that was on, like in school holidays, seemed to be black and white movies. I remember Elvis movies every single holiday at school. There'll be a black and white Elvis movie on the television. So I do obviously understand black and white, and I did see a lot in black and white. Maybe that's another reason why Doctor Who was so exciting, because it was in full colour.
I mean, certainly. When we got our first colour television, then it's sort of the whole world opens up. I remember before we got our first colour television, I remember watching Doctor Who on a friend's television. That Saturday night. I mean, what was it we used to watch? Was it Grandstand?
Grandstand,
Watch the wrestling with Big Daddy.
Wrestling, and there was some kids shows like Run Around or
something, and then it was Doctor
Who. Yeah.
And I remember on the very odd occasion that I was staying at a friend's house, I remember this coloured television. Everything was so green. You know, the grass was...
Yeah.
There's almost like they turned the colour.
When we say colour, it was debatable, the colour.
Like, burn your retinas out.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
You youngsters don't understand this.
But it was like, for people jumping from a black and white television to suddenly having this colour TV, you didn't want it in, like, realistic colour.
No. You just want it in...
You want super colour.
Super motion colour.
Super colour. So when you're seeing that intro of Doctor Who and the time vortex, and it's like...
And the music as well. It was definitely the opening titles and the music together, which really started...
Draws you in.
Draw you right in, yeah. And do remember as well, in our day, if you missed an episode, you missed an episode.
Well, that is something people don't.
No, they don't understand. It wasn't repeated the next week.
It's really weird because So just recently I was looking at posts about House of the Dragon, which is on at the moment. I think we're about halfway through the series on that, and Zach and I were lucky enough to work on that.
And I got released.
Oh, bless you. And so we worked on it, but. When you're looking at the posts from eager fans that are waiting for a series, and then suddenly people are saying, "This is terrible, they're releasing it on a weekly basis." I refuse to watch it until I can binge watch it.
Oh my God, why would you want to do that?
Because obviously I grew up.
Everyone wants everything immediately, but we're like, no. Let's have a week to talk about it at school.
It's the cliffhanger.
Talk about it with your mates. What do you think is going to happen?
And then you wait. You can't wait for the following Saturday.
Or you miss it because you're out bicycling and you forget to come back. Or
there was no catch up.
No, there was no repeats, and I suppose that's another thing. If you like Doctor Who as a child, there's a big difference between liking Doctor Who as a child and then, for me personally, falling back in love with it, if you like, when I kind of fell back into watching it as an adult. It's a massive different leap.
I can really understand where you're coming from there, Toby, because we went from watching Doctor Who in the 70s and 80s, and then you get to that age where...
Too old for Doctor Who. Too cool.
Or too cool for this.
Never was.
Never was. but it's because it didn't get repeated.
Yes.
You know, they didn't do that kind of stuff on mainstream TV.
You wouldn't even think that it would be
until we had satellite television. At the basic analog
VHS
satellite.
For me, it was.
So you actually did.
It was for me for VHS, and I'll tell you for how that my life happened in that regard, because at the time I was working, but I wasn't. No one earned a lot of money in those days, and I had to get a second job to supplement my income, and I got a job in a like a Blockbuster store. It wasn't called Blockbuster, it was called Hollywood Nights. It was slightly different in those days.
Yeah, I used to hang out in video.
It's a Ritzford. Was it Ritzford?
Wow.
We had Ritzford as well.
I remember Ritz, yeah.
But as working in one of these stores, and I worked in a small, it was almost a converted house that had been made into a small store in Frying Barnet. And when you started your shift there, you were told you need to put something on. So there's something when people come in. There's something on the screens.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So when I first walked in, I was walking around, and it's almost like this thing. Oh my God, it's too much choice. And then you end up there going, oh, what do I put on? Oh God, I don't know what I want. But then I saw right at the bottom, I saw two Doctor Who logos, the triangle logos.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, Doctor Who. Oh, I loved it. Oh, Doctor Who.
So the VHS videos passed me by.
No, I didn't.
Until later on, because I remember getting the tin box. You know, the tin box.
Yeah.
The classic Who.
Yeah, but again,
William Hartnell.
Yeah, they had to get you one each, those tin box sometimes. There was one. I don't know if it's the Trial of the Time Lord, but they put a different Doctor on the bottom of each box to try and get everyone to get. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I can't afford that. So I just got the Doctor, the story,
and you put it
referred to. So I got Colin Baker on the bottom of my tin.
Right.
But they had every single one of the Doctor. Doctor on the box.
So you were playing those.
So completists. Well, no, I wasn't, because I didn't have a video player at home.
Oh no, but you were playing them in the shop.
But in the shop, and there was only two ones there. One was a Dalek story, and the other one, which has become my Holy Grail and my episode I love, one was Robots of Death. And so. But in my confusion from becoming a child to an adult, I assumed in my mind, as soon as I saw it, oh yeah, there's a Cybermen story. And I thought it was the Cybermen that were on the Sand Miner. And in my memory from a child, I thought it was a Cybermen. And when I was watching it, I was like, they're not Cybermen. What on earth are they? And then I didn't understand, because I only, from a kid to an adult, I remember Daleks and Cybermen.
You would have only ever seen that story
right.
once.
Yeah, but I didn't know if it was anything else, if it went on to it was past something else. But I was like, actually, I really love the way they look.
Yeah.
I love the way those robots were.
The Vok robots are iconic.
And that became my falling back in love with Doctor Who as an adult from a child. And then, of course, I was okay, I want to see more of these. I want to see what they were all like. So I went around all the local video shops and borrowed the ones I could to play in the one I was sitting working in my one.
Superb. Whereas for me, I kind of missed that.
Yeah.
Didn't obviously you were in the right place at the right time, but then we started getting an analog satellite.
Yeah, we never had that.
Then we
never had that.
We had UK Gold that came on. And
Goodness me!
They used to do the omnibus classic Who on a Sunday morning. And that's where
I got on board.
Obviously, this is where Zach you're 24, but that was what re-energised my love for Doctor Who, because I could wake up on a Sunday morning. It's like, oh my God, it's Peladon, it's Agador. It's like, this is crazy. I haven't seen this since I was a kid.
And some of you be like, oh, dude, that's really bad, but I still love it.
Well, no, I mean, we can diversify slightly, because I love Blake Seven and things like that. I
love Blake Seven as well, and I get inverted commas bullied for liking that, because everyone thinks it's so terrible, but I loved it.
No, the stories, and that's the thing I like about Classic Who. We're getting a bit nerdy now, but the thing about Classic Who is the storylines were so good and acted so well to get over the budget
the lack of effect. And in fact, as a child and growing up, I didn't ever watch, even though they're on the VHS, then I didn't watch the black and white one. I was like, why do I want to see a black and white one? And at that age group.
Later on.
But as I say now, as a full adult of over 21 by a lot, I really, really adore. I mean, I think Patron probably is going up there as my second favourite. And some of the stories, though, I just think are like the Invasion and Moonbase, and I just think are just incredible stories.
It is the story.
It's the storytelling
and the way they are told.
Yeah.
Because again, when these were recorded, they were never expected to be seen again.
Which is when you then have the missing episodes.
Yeah, because
have off track a little bit. Have you guys seen The Abominable Snowman?
I've got it.
Yeah,
have you seen it yet?
Not yet.
No spoilers.
Okay. But
anyway,
so that re-energised, being able to see that omnibus was for me. And then, of course,
you recorded it onto VHS.
And
then I watched it.
And then Zach started watching it. That's why Zach is so clued up on.
Well, I'm going to give you parental worship there, because my son is also 23, 24, and I tried for years to get him interested in Doctor Who, and he didn't understand, didn't get it, and didn't want to get it really. So I think I've failed as a parent miserably because my son doesn't like Doctor Who.
Looking back, I don't think that I made you watch Doctor Who.
You groomed him. You definitely did. I'm telling you now.
It's just, it could have been something you just didn't take to, but you did.
I always remember Planet of the Daleks. It was the black and white episode. That about halfway through episode 3 or something, it suddenly changes to black and white or something on the VHS. That was just really. That's what I remember.
And and it's great. So there we are. Right, we're back on track now with our Superfan. So you're really enthusiastic with Classic Who. You get to.
But then, what do you do with it at that age? What do you do? I've re-found Doctor Who as an adult. I'm like, okay, I could get some of these now. But how do you do it? I mean, in those days, there was no internet. There's no ask Google, ask Siri about Doctor Who. And literally, I was like, oh, well, okay, so I'll just get a couple of videos. And because I was working in the video shop, I used to order them via the video shops. Right. We need it for the store, I'd say. And then I'd watch them first and then give them out. But that's how I did it. So I'm just literally doing my own thing. Then, of course, the business I was working with was actually to do with a completely unrelated Doctor Who. It was a tour operator selling Africa, and Africa went into some troubles with selling the holidays, and the firm folded that I was with, and he also owned these.
Is this in the 80s?
No, not very end to the beginning of the 90s.
Right. Okay.
Because the boss also owned this chain of video shops called Hollywood Nights. So eventually, because that folded, I became the area manager for he had 4 or 5 shops.
Okay.
And I carried on with that for as long as possible. And then that went by the by. And then I was like, what do I do with myself? I don't know what to do. So then I thought, I'm all right with sort of selling things. So I got a job as a salesman. And as a salesman in those days, one of the duties is you'd have to go to a town or an area and you do something called canvassing, which means you knocked on every single business there, took a compliment, ask who is in charge of sales. And I was doing this in East London, in East Ham. And literally, I was walking out of East Ham Tube Station to do this canvassing, and I looked up there, the Who shop. I was like, what? He said, the Who shop. I'm like, there's a Dalek in the window. What's going on here? And I was like, no, it can't be. He said, that's just for Doctor Who. What do I do? I'm really cool and old now, so what do I do? Do I just walk past it? I'm like, no, I can't. I've got to go in.
You've got to go in.
Got to go in. So I went in, and I was like, oh my God, there's people like me in here. And I'm not old in here. There's people older than me, and there's people talking about Doctor Who in a very adult and very normal manner. Wow. So I found myself spending more time in East Ham canvassing, sitting in the Who shop every day.
So you've suddenly gone from the single entity by yourself to suddenly find this community.
A community, and the lady that ran it was so nice, and she had a dog that was front of house, and I loved animals, and so it was so lovely to see a person that had a dog in their store, because unusual.
That would have been very
that's
unusual.
right, and with Dalek and with other things, and then they're like talking this, that, and the other. Oh, when we do conventions, I was like, what? What's a convention?
Yeah, this is leading me on to. I was going to ask you, when did you start getting to do conventions?
So she's like, well, conventions are, when we go and we take the stuff in the Who shop, and we'll set up in a dealer's room, and there'll be a room full of dealers selling items. There'll be people that are involved in the show in either an acting or a creative way or a writing way. They'll have panels and things, and people can ask them questions. Mm-hmm. And then in those days, it wasn't so money orientated like it is now. You could literally go and get anything signed by people. You paid a single fee for a day or for a weekend, and everything was sort of included within that price.
Right.
It wasn't so money orientated as it is now.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Oh yeah, and there might be some other people from other shows involved as well. They're not necessarily just Doctor Who. I was like, really? Okay. And she's like, yeah, and I also do signings in the shop, and Toby, you're a big lad, and you look good on the door, and it'd be good if you if you would help us. I was like, God, of course I'd help you. Not understanding it. For me, I'm still sort of, in inverted commas, fanboying out at that age.
Completely awash with what's going on.
Yeah, and then, of course, I'm introduced to the other side of fandom, is when I'm all of a sudden, I'm going to pick up guests. I'm transporting guests. I'm having conversations with guests, with writers, with people involved in the show and other shows on a different level. I'm like, I really enjoy this. This is fantastic.
So we've now taken the step from being the fan looking in from the outside to actually like being on the inside.
That's right. And I really enjoyed it. And the signings were some of them were very small and but really fun, because they talked to everyone all the time. It wasn't like in a big hall. It was literally maybe 100 people waiting to come to the shop.
Do you remember your first con that you went to?
I do for different reasons, but the first one I went to, I think I went to with the Who shop, was Panopticon, one of the very early Panopticons.
Where's that?
It was in the middle of London. I can't remember if it was Excel or it was before the Excel was there, because it's that old. But all I remember is literally not being able to stop on working on the. It was like crazy. I mean, I'm talking about, it was like there were ants, and these ants coming in and buying and moving out in these lines and going left, right and centre. And literally, before I knew it, it was the end of the weekend, and Alex is saying to me, that's the lady that owns the shop, she's saying, well, we need to transfer the money to the bank. And she said, but what I want to do is I'm going to pretend I've got it in my bag, and then I'm just going to put it in a bin bag for you to carry, because no one's going to trouble you. Because I mean, I didn't really, those days I didn't understand that people looked at me as this, oh my God, he's massive, I'm not going to trouble him. I didn't understand that. Being a big guy, you never think like that anyway. No, and I didn't know this was going to be the start of my security career either. Yeah. But so I said, okay, then what did we make? He said, well, come upstairs to her husband's room, and we'll count the money out. It was £25,000.
Wow, and that was in the early 90s?
Yes, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I bundled that into a black bin bag and walked it like that through it to get out, while she was looking, so she had all the money in there. And I felt so part of something on a different level, and then Doctor Who became much more than just a fandom. I was starting to become what they call into the Doctor Who family, because I started to then get to know.
I was going to say, who was the first actual actor from Doctor Who that you met? Whether it would be one of the primary actors.
I'm trying to remember.
Or did you meet one of the companions?
Because they had so many signings regularly in the shop, and there was a lot of conventions around this time. I'm trying to remember, but I know I did Tom and Colin and John very early on. met all of them, but also from companions wise, I met Sophie so many times and became great friends with Sophie.
Just jumping in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking Tom, we're meaning
Tom Baker
for the listeners.
Tom Baker,
we have listeners from around the
John
world.
Pertwee, and Colin Baker, and I think either Colin or John was first. I'm not sure, because memory, our age, it goes a little bit. Had a few knocks on the head in my career, so you forgive me if I've got it in the wrong order. But and of course, speaking to these people and finding out, they're just like me. They're just a person.
Yeah.
But they're, and then you're hearing the stories and you're getting to know them on a different level, and it's like, oh, this is brilliant. It's because you're hearing things outside of Who now. You're hearing about their life and what they've done and events, etc. And you're like, this is really it makes you feel, so family. And then Debbie Watling was another. Deborah Watling was another person that we met many times, and in fact we went to see her at the theatre. We also went to see Sophie when she was in the theatre as well.
It's just Sophie Aldridge.
It's also Sophie Aldridge. Yeah, we saw her in her productions, and Deborah Watling, who of course her father was Jack Watling, and Deborah was Vicky. In those days. But of course I didn't know her as Vicky, because at this stage I hadn't seen the black and white ones. I just knew her as Deborah Watling, and she's really cool.
I know. Often when we've been on set and you bump into, I'm standing next to another actor and you're chatting to them, and I have no idea that actually.
Yeah. I mean that's the thing in our normal life, which some might say is a direct link to getting involved at that stage as to what I'm doing now. Yeah. We don't know who we're standing next to who we're going to be working with from one minute to the next.
That's it. I mean, coming back to that kind of the subject of Superfan, when we've worked on EastEnders for years, supporting artists on that. So we're these days, we're on there, and you're on there with Danny Dyer or whoever, and you're spending the day on set, and you're saying hello and you're chatting, and everything is just normal because we're just normal.
It's just work.
It's
just work, really, isn't it?
Work, actor to actor, whatever. Yeah. But when you come out at the end of the day, there's always this concentrated group of fans outside with their autograph books, desperate to get that. And it's kind of that what makes somebody
want perception of fandom, isn't it?
Yeah, and that I was first introduced to by helping the Who Shop out. I started seeing fans, and I saw fans that were terribly excited to see people. I saw fans that were completely obsessively excited, and I saw fans that were literally, it was their entire life to have this moment in time. And then there was a very small proportion, which I learned early on about, where I think we will probably have to discuss this at some point, when it goes beyond that
and becomes obsessive.
And the way I'd sort of say it as nicely as possible is, I remember when I was with Tom Baker at a convention, he was asked in his question and answer session, as this fan stood up and said, right, in episode 1, paragraph 3, subsection 4, you said, and I quote, and like Tom's looking at him saying, well, of course I don't remember any of that. I mean, I
did the job. I got paid.
And then I'm seeing, when I'm actually there doing sort of, I'm sitting with the artist while the queues are going past for signing the things. I've seen the fans that unfortunately don't understand there is a difference between reality and fiction. Yeah. It's lost, whether it's because, and there are different reasons it's lost, and it's not all because they're.
I've heard of fans where they've been so, again, I don't want to sound excessive by saying obsessive, but they can be very obsessive on the character.
Yes.
And don't sort of see the difference between the fact that the character is just a character portrayed by an actor.
They step over that.
The actor isn't the same as the
character. To them, you're absolutely right. There is no difference, and they don't understand about personal space and about... there's a way of doing things, and it could be for different reasons.
Well, it's probably best described when you look at a character that is disliked on screen. So if you looked at Game of Thrones...
Well, now they're trolled, aren't they? Now you get trolled in this way on it.
We didn't have social
media.
No,
we didn't.
These days, I mean, if you think of Game of Thrones, what's just literally sprung to mind, and you had Joffrey, the character, the young lad who played Joffrey, which was an absolutely vile character. And the amount of... Hate.
For me, that just says he's a great actor.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
You are so spot on.
Yeah,
he did his job perfectly
well to do
but
that.
It's just such a shame that outside of that, the actors then walking down the street can have that reaction from the general public because they can't.
Acting is their only frame of reference.
It's funny,
isn't it?
It is, and again, I've been very blessed in my relationship, all my timeline with Doctor Who. And of course, when Doctor Who was cancelled, that was really, really a sort of final for most of us. We never assumed it would come back.
Never assumed it would come back.
And of course,
especially
there was
not after the Doctor Who's Save Me Doctor Who record.
Doctor in Distress.
That's Doctor in Distress, that's it.
But I mean, it's such a thing. I sold 99% of my...
If you haven't listened to Doctor in Distress, look it up on YouTube. It's a real treat.
So because of that, I was like, well, that's it. What's the point of me collecting anything anymore if it's never going to be back? So I literally, at that stage of my life, I sold most of my collection, 99% of it. But then all of a sudden, because there was nobody else that was doing anything because the BBC had cancelled it, because I was working in and around the Who. I wasn't worked in the Who shop, as in staff or anything. I just basically used to end up helping her out on events and signings, and again, it was just because I wanted to do it in those days. But you get, all of a sudden, I'm there with Nick Briggs and people like this that were just the same as everyone else, that were just sort of fans at that stage. And there was a guy called Bill Baggs who was like the first, if you like, fan spin-off. Right. He got in line with BBC Nottingham, and he produced this thing called the Stranger series, and it featured Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant as sort of the main cast, but it featured everybody like Sophie Aldred and loads of other people in this.
This was fan-based film, yeah.
But it was fan-made, but it was something to do with BBC Nottingham,
right? So
because because the early filming was up in Nottingham, and I did a couple of the small films, but then he did a big film called The Air Zone Solution, which actually featured...
Okay, who was in that then?
It featured Colin Baker, John Pertwee, Peter Davison, I think Sophie Aldred, I can't remember, but Nicola Bryant, but then Alan Cummings was in it as the lead sort of baddie. And
So were they playing their Doctor Who characters?
It weren't allowed to call it Doctor Who.
That's what I was going
but everyone knew it was Doctor Who, but it wasn't. It was called The Stranger.
Right, so when they were performing on screen...
they weren't wearing Doctor Who costumes, but they were literally, they were investigating an Air Zone Solution. I don't want to give anyone spoilers. I haven't seen it. It is one of the ones that actually eventually worked its way onto DVD, and it's actually quite a good storyline because it's all about sort of...
Do you remember the run time on
it? No, it's a fair old run time.
So is it movie length?
Yeah, movie length, and it was all about sort of problems with air quality and breathing, and the government was developing gills on some test subjects. Right. So it was very much quite
Global
relevant
warming.
now. Yes, but so it's really interesting, and actually, I was, literally, I was just one of the many extras.
So you were in the right place at the right time.
Well, I had to drive to get to the right place at the right time because it was filmed in Nottingham.
You actually worked as an essay on that.
I worked as an essay on that in one of the scenes, and thoroughly enjoyed myself on that. And then that subsequently led to me to being involved in an early Keith Barnfather project called Downtime.
Keith Barnfather runs Real Time.
Real Time, and he did this film called Downtime, which featured the Yetis, and it featured the Brigadier, who we all love. Nicholas, he was just an amazing chap, and Jack Watling and Debbie Watling are in it. Chris Barry, I think, directed it. I believe, I can't remember. I'm going back to '94 now, guys. Listen, forgive me if I'm wrong. And again, my essay work was actually me in my car, and we involved making a traffic jam around St Paul's, and we got all round the Briggs Range Rover to block him in on this.
Yeah, I think I remember that scene. Yeah.
So there's a little old me and my little MR2, my little red MR2 two-seater.
We're going to have to rewatch it.
Well, actually, I couldn't see myself in it, but then watching the specials, there's an interview with me on the specials, a tiny little one, which is lovely. But I didn't know that until literally last year.
So all that time's gone
because
by.
you don't know. I mean, I've never seen it till last. Yeah. Remember, again, when I did these projects back in the 90s, they never came out. I didn't see them.
No, you didn't see them.
Yeah.
And then because Doctor Who cancelled, and then I sort of drifted away from Doctor Who, and I found myself in a music industry, and I became a tour manager taking bands on tours. So still around fandom, and that's why I absolutely understand what you're saying about people that stand outside waiting in lines.
So you're a Doctor Who fan.
Yes.
You've now sort of jumped to the fence, if you like. I mean, like with myself and Zach, and yourself now, because obviously you've been doing SA work for quite some time.
Yeah.
That we spend our time on movie sets.
Yes. But I was music first of all. It was me. It was bands and music.
So it becomes second nature. Yeah. Because it's your job.
And the people become second nature, and the lifestyle.
It's jumping the barrier from the people that are standing outside with their autograph books.
But,
and because we live in that zone, it doesn't.
But I won't forget Buzz, I will not forget that I was on that side of it, and I remember how it feels. So when I was looking after the bands, I was the one that's saying, "You get out there in that rain, and you make sure you see those kids that wait for
exactly
you.
Where
You go there and give them their autograph because it'll make their day."
Yeah, but that's exactly where I was going to go. So because now you're working as a tour manager, and you're suddenly on that opposite side.
Yes, yeah.
Then you're looking out at those fans and having an understanding.
And remembering,
of those fans.
I felt for them.
But
I did, because they were young, impressionable, and sometimes they've been standing outside hotels or radio stations or TV shows for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. And these are young, and because I did a lot of boy bands, first of all, a lot of them were very young girls. And I being a parent as well, I was a very young parent then, because my son was literally born in '99. And I was like, God, do these kids' parents know that they're out all night waiting for this autograph for these people? And I again, in my time of doing tour management, and I did tour management before, up until the point of Pop Idol started with what's his chops? Simon Cowell. His first TV program was called Pop Up, and I actually was one of the tour managers that drove the winning band, and the winning band was Hearsay.
Right, so were you doing this during the kind of Stockacre and Waterman period?
I knew them yes. I mean, I looked after Kylie, I looked after lots of, I did Danny as well. But I did Peter Andre before he was, and a lot of other people that unfortunately never made it. And one thing I could never understood is how you do and don't make it in the music, because you can see people with the same level of talent and extra factor, but it's just luck sometimes. But my work in those days as a freelance tour manager for Polydor was I would get booked a month before an album or a single release for a month to go and do all the promotional work, which is everything from TVs to radio stations to schools, because we did school tours back in those days. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's the bread and butter work for a tour manager. Yes, I can get a tour for 3 months, but then I won't get another tour for maybe a year. The tours don't come up all the times, but bread and butter work for a tour manager was this 1 month for a single or an album release. When I got Hearsay, I was really happy. I was like, great, where's the itinerary for Hearsay? Oh yeah, you're doing Top of the Pops and you're doing Children Lead. And well, that's all you need to do. And I soon realised that because they'd done their promotional work on the show, the promotional work didn't have to happen anywhere else. So overnight, my style of tour management, my industry died.
Right.
It literally died because there was all us freelance tour managers. Because you imagine there'll be a record company that have 5 acts, and they want the 5 acts to go to the same gig. But as a single person, you can only drive one of them.
Yep.
So we were very much freelance, but very much you had to have a lot of us to bring everybody. Mm-hmm. So it was a camaraderie, and for a time I lived with the band 5 on a ranch in Edgware at the beginning of the M1,
right,
and with a mentor that taught me everything I knew in the business. And sadly, he got killed driving Girls Aloud. He dropped them off at Christmas and then crashed and sadly was wiped out. And when I went to his funeral, I took up. There was a lot of famous people because we drove everybody, and it wasn't about the stars, but the paparazzis were everywhere, and they were taking pictures, and I got really angsty and angry about it all, and then decided, because of what's happened also with the industry, I decided to hang up my car keys.
So within that period, you must have, as you briefly mentioned about asking people to go out and sign autographs, for their fans, because their fans are.
I had to do it myself, Buzz. Yeah. There were people in the bands, the fans. They'd have a fan of everybody. As a tour manager, I'd have my own group of fans out there, which was crazy, but it was lovely. But it was crazy. I'm like, why do you want my autograph? Oh, because you look after them all. You're really important. I'm like, this world is incredible.
Right. So this is it. We've gone back to this point of trying to understand. This further.
And of course I signed them for the kids, because they're kids.
So did you, can you have any insight in what do you think was driving that fandom in those people? Because you did mention...
It is. I mean,
for somebody to queue up for hours, and for other people, you did mention on the more adult side of it that some people were offering services.
Yes. I mean, all I would say is, you get a group of people, and I say I did drive girl groups. I did a lot of girl groups, but when I first started, I was doing boy bands. There was like 99% of the fans were girls, and girls become pack animals. And I'm telling you, they become very, 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 very nasty if they want to, and very, very desperate.
Right.
And they're all competing with each other to get something that the other one can't get. And it got to a stage where you literally have people saying, get us in and we'll let you do that. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is not right. That is not my idea of fandom.
That's somebody's daughter there.
Absolutely. You know, I'm not always a daughter. It could be someone's mum. Could be someone's, sister or anything. Right. Just it's the pack animal thing. And literally, I've also on the other side of it. When I've walked the bands through people, I've been spat at, scratched, had my clothes ripped, and stuff as well. And I also had to use a nickname because I used to get followed home in my car as well by both fans and by the paparazzi as well.
I was going to say, if there is a silver lining to that negative side of things, at least you weren't in a position of having to deal with social media at that time.
One, we didn't, but also when I had, so obviously you have conversations with the people you're driving, because as a tour manager in the UK, I drove as well. I didn't drive abroad, but I drove in the UK. So you'd have hours in band. Well, I'd pick up a band I've never met before. And sometimes they'd be very, very young. So I remember when I looked after Fierce, they were like 16, 15 and 14. Anyway, I had to go and meet their parents first, which is the right thing to do. And I'm literally meeting their parents. I got on very well with the parents. And then I'm in a car driving them up to Liverpool. Never spent time with these people. I've got to take them on a tour for a week. These young. So there's a lot of responsibility for someone that has honour and integrity. And also, as a freelance tour manager, you are your own, flag. Anyone that works for you will not do it as well as you. And reputation is absolutely everything in an industry like that. And it was just mad sometimes that I then started looking after really big. I remember on the same day I looked after S Club 7 and Sting in the same day. I went to Pure Manufactured Pop to Pure Class in one day, and I was speaking to Sting and his wife when I was driving them to a recording session. And he said, "You know what?" He said, you might not know it, but you guys are the lucky ones. I was like, how's that? He said, because you can go home and be yourself.
Right.
We can never go out and be ourselves. And I'm like, that's a fair point. It's a fair point,
but it is also the...
It's a price of fame, they call it. But I mean, when I've seen what it means, it is a double-edged sword.
So have you had, with any of your experiences at this stage in your career and in your life, any fans which have gone too far that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, many times.
Right.
Many times. And also I've had artists that are that think they are better and don't have to do that kind of thing.
Right.
And I have to, because again, as a tour manager, you are responsible for everything on that tour. You are the last person to go to sleep and you're the first person to get up. You have to make sure that band are completely ready to do live TV. They have to have hair, makeup, and they have to look right and say the right thing. If they don't, it's your fault.
Right.
So you literally have to father these. I was a father, uncle, shoulders shine, shoulders to cry, whatever you like. It's not a joke. It wasn't you got a cushy job. I loved it. Don't get me wrong, because my nature is to look after people. Yeah. That's how I feel I've always been. But it was hard, and people, when I tried to expand and get other people to help me, they always let me down because they're not you and they don't go to that level you do. But yeah, both sides go too far, and it's not nice to see. And I don't really want to.
No, that's fine.
Because obviously I have many things which I'll never tell anybody, and I wouldn't ever.
That's
yeah, but yes, things go too far on both sides. And
both sides. Okay, we're going to stick with the fan side of it. So
I had that. Yeah. So
you've been tour managing, and then it got to a point where obviously you just said you kind of like the whole industry changed.
Yeah, it changed. So what do? I don't know. So I fall into security. I went on a little course to do a little sitting gills in it, and then I got poached off the course, and I found myself supervisor at St Thomas's Hospital. I'm talking life and death now. I'm talking I was stabbed twice working that role, but I got people in front of me that are dying, and you see everything, and it puts everything in perspective. And I did a long time there, and I moved around security. My whole career went up, and my last position, I was the head of security for Kensington and Chelsea Council, all the way through Grenfell. Unfortunately, it was my team that were rioted against because we were trying to protect the town hall and the councillors. Not that we agreed with everything that happened, but we are staff just trying to do a job, but you're caught up in the middle of it. And I had some horrendous experiences with some very famous people that I don't wish to repeat. When I was trying to do my job there, and in the end, I thought to myself, at my age, what am I doing now, Toby? What are you doing? You're high and fluty, mighty job. All these people under you, multi-million-pound contracts you're running, but what's it all about? And then COVID hit, and I sort of moved back temporarily into Hertfordshire to stay with my folks, and then I kind of got stuck because of that, and that's when I got contacted by someone that was doing this fan film.
You're talking
project.
about Johnny Who Entertainment?
Johnny Who Entertainment, yeah, and they wanted to see if I had some costumes to supply, which I did have, but not the whole costumes.
Well, these are Doctor Who costumes.
And they are not. I didn't have they were the Vok robot heads.
Okay, so you've got Vok robot heads. So suddenly, we've gone through
all of this, and then Doctor Who's mentioned again to me, and I'm like,
suddenly comes back.
And I had seen some of the new shows since it's been back. I watched the Eccleston era and Tennant era, and really enjoyed it. But I wasn't involved in the industry at all. But I watched it and enjoyed it. And then he said, well, okay, do you want to play a robot? I'm like, well, unless you've got a robot that's the size of a tent. I'm a big lad, by the way.
I think we both are. I wouldn't fit in one of those.
I couldn't fit in. So then like a week later he said, oh, well, would you like to play sort of this alien character in it as a man?
I recall, because for the listeners, Zach and I were also brought in on this.
That's when I first met you guys.
That's it.
So, it's our history now.
Zach, as a cinematographer, was filming.
Yes, right.
And I think I was wrangling on most of that.
Yeah, you were.
I was wrangling.
I did play a Vok robot.
Oh,
you did?
Play a Vok robot.
I did.
Yeah. He did play a Vok as well.
Slim Jim.
And Jack did as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
But I was slimmer than that. But anyway.
Actually, you also played another character in that Doctor Who fan film.
Oh.
And who was that?
Taron Capel.
Oh, were you? Was it you? Oh, yeah.
Taron Capel, which takes us right back to the original.
But I thought to myself, yeah, I'd like to do that. I had no expectations at all. I hadn't done anything apart from these two short things. I'd done Panto for 7 years when I was in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Panto is different from doing anything else because you can make mistakes and it's a laugh. But
I was talking to Brian Croucher, name dropping. Brian Croucher about Pantos, and he said, again, they've changed.
I know they were brilliant back in the day, but
back in the day, Panto was such a British tradition.
But it was so good. It made you feel so good doing it as well.
And it's so tongue in cheek with those kind of
not allowed to
double entendres.
I know.
And now it's the whole thing's changed.
But so I thought, okay, let's see it. He said, oh, I've got this character I want you to play. And so I turned up there and I was a bit sort of, I didn't really know anybody. I didn't know how it would work, and I just did my stuff. And then everyone said, I hope you're really good. Oh, you're really good at that. I'm like, what? Really?
Yes, I remember your costume.
That was not very good.
No, it's cool.
With Christmas decorations,
it was classic Doctor Who.
Yeah, but the thing is, I also really enjoyed it. And it was a long day, but I really enjoyed it. I thought I really loved doing this.
The thing with Johnny Who Entertainments, if anybody out there comes across that, there's a YouTube channel, I believe. But that was the thing. It's a lot of fans that have come together to do that.
It's non-profit. It's not for money. We don't ever get paid.
No, but it's all that common interest, and everybody's become this big family. And it was, and it's all because Doctor Who has kind of brought. It's brought all
because Doctor, and we're all different ages as well. And it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are there, because we're all there just having a laugh, and it's not work for us. It's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun because we are having fun.
That's it. And I've said this many times when we've worked on big blockbuster movies and TV series and things, and it's serious, and we're getting paid for that.
That's right.
And then when you're doing something like a fan film,
that's right.
It's it's just
fun. Yeah. It's fun, and and also I understood that I can have words and I can have ad lib, and it's funny, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that I could think. You don't know. You can never think off your head and say something which is everyone's like cracking up laughing, and I find that really enjoyable to make people completely lose the plot with an ad lib or something, or I mean, my favourite one I ever did was in the one that's just come out actually.
Which one's that?
The one where I think you guys are probably Federation guards. The Athena on with the Cybermen.
Federation
Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, because we get sort of ambushed and Jed.
Jed Basker.
He's our leader, and he's like, right, go on.
He's from UNIT.
Yeah. Well, me and him were both from UNIT.
Oh,
that's right. I was a quartermaster, but we join the alliance because we get trapped on Telos there. We get left behind, and he's like, no, quick, go in there and hide.
If you're listening to this and you're a well-schooled Doctor Who fan, and you're suddenly listening to us talking about Telos and Cybermen and the Federation,
have another drink and sit there.
Trust me, it kind of works.
It did work.
And with me and Zach, we're generally getting killed all the time.
Oh, very much.
That's our job.
Yeah. But I thought we were going to get killed, and Jed's like, "Don't panic, everyone." I said, "Don't panic. I'm up a bloody tree. What do you expect?"
Oh no! But it was great fun.
But it's nice to be able to do. I say in our normal job, you don't deviate from anywhere out of what you're told to do, because we are very much sheep.
Yes, it.
In our normal day of life.
Glorified meat props.
Meat props for the costumes.
Yes, quite.
Because we do just a quick explanation. We do stuff from basically being the close-up essays. Because I mean, in House of the Dragon, you were loafing around most of the time as a noble.
Oh yeah, you got a load of airplay. You did
with Matt Smith. Smith.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas I was in the red.
In the dirt.
I was in the red keep. I'm a smithy, blacksmith in the corner. Which, in fact, last night's episode, I could hear me going clang, 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 but couldn't see me.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then,
the last thing I did, I was given the plague. The last thing I did, and I'm a plague, then a zombie, and it's bloody
that's
brilliant.
the thing.
You know?
Over the years,
I just love it.
we've done a lot of special
Yeah,
action
yeah.
work where we literally work with the stunt teams
Yeah.
and do all sorts from medieval to modern day, military roles and etc.
And again, on these shoots, Buzz, you know as much as I do. If you're doing a shoot in London and it's something like a Marvel or like, you've got fans. We come back to fans again. There's fans watching you. They stop and watch what you're filming, especially if it's a stunt scene. Like, I've just done the Craven the Hunter, and literally we had we were in London Wall, and every single sort of window was people out clicking and taking pictures. I mean, you can't do anything in secret anymore.
No.
But in London,
well, I remember being down at Longcross Studios and down there when I worked on the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and we were in crowd holding, so where everybody is. It was the kiln scenes where we were in the prison.
Oh yeah.
And so we got a big mix of us as aliens, etc. And before we moved from one soundstage to the actual stage where the kiln set was, everybody had to put like covers over
so they couldn't
themselves.
see what you look like.
So helicopters or people up in trees couldn't cross.
I mean, that's a lot of cost of movies now. It's trying to make sure people don't see it.
Don't get any leaks. But we diversify.
Well, we have diversity again. I'm sorry about this.
So it's great. Just we're good friends and we like having a chat. So
what
Doctor Who, Doctor Who, Superfans.
Yeah.
So you started to meet the actual actors playing Doctor Who. Tell us about what they were like.
They were. I mean, you're very early on. You realise they're just people. What's the big deal? And
there's a saying that says you never want to meet your hero, so to speak,
because that mystique kind of
but sometimes that does work. Because some people aren't nice, but that's never happened to me.
Yeah.
I haven't met anybody. I've had difficult people I've worked with. That are difficult for many reasons, especially as a tour manager. And in fact, I did a lot of. I worked for a company called Music and Arts, and we did all the shows in London. I was, dressed in your tuxedo, and you do all the things like I did Shirley Bassey in the Festival Hall, and she was a very, very hard, demanding person. I've done Elton John at his Lion King premiere party, and he was a taskmaster because he wanted everything right for it.
But you understand.
But of course I understand that. Yeah. But, and then I got. Because I did this, I got picked to go on the big breakfast because the Mum of the Week back in this particular year wanted to be a bodyguard, so they brought me in to talk about being a bodyguard. And they interviewed me. I know it was Keith Chegwin and Zoe Ball were on it when I did it, and it's live. So you picked up at like 4 a.m. and you go to this house. I think it was in East London back in the day, and they go through. Right, we're going to ask you these questions, and literally when it goes live, they ask you none of the questions they asked you before. It's complete, and they put it on you. But he said, and I didn't know they're going to do this. They're like, oh well, you need to show your skills, Toby. So I need to put someone out here that you're going to protect, and I'm going to be the sad fan, Keith Chegwin. So I'm like, well, who are you going to bring out? They brought out Frank Bruno. I was like, anyway, so he does it. I stand in front of Frank as his bodyguard, and he comes running. He does a star jump at me. So I just went like that, put my hands down, he went, boing, and slid all the way down.
Slid off.
And it's like, oh, it's not bad, Toe. So then the Mum of the Week, who's literally about 4 foot, she says, right, you do that now. And as Keith Chegwin ran at her, she went like that, but then she went like that, boop, and poked his eyes. And of course, he's on the floor like that. I'm laughing. Frank Bruno's going, laughing. It's completely live.
Mayhem and chaos.
Yeah, and so from that,
from that point onwards, Cheggers never did play.
I then got asked to do with Mark Little, who was a presenter. I then looked after him at some other shows, and we did some sketches with the boss of Music and Arts, who was the Yorkie man originally, Jerry Judge, who was also just embroiled in all the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, because he was his. Until he'd passed away, he was Johnny Depp's bodyguard.
Right. Okay.
And Jerry Judge was again taught me so much early on in my career. A lovely man, and again he was also the Yorkie Bar man in the 70s. He was that model that did the Yorkie Bar. Anyway, so I've got all these things in my head from all these different directions, and then because of this filming, where I met you, I got asked another one. Then we did this filming in Oldbourne to do a recreation of the Demons.
Yes. Oh, yes.
What's the name of that particular one? It's
Devil's End. The Curse of Devil's End.
Devil's
And
End,
this is where it gets bizarre. I'm there playing the vicar, as you well know.
And a very good role you play.
But then one of the soldiers, unit soldiers, was the husband of the lady that runs the Who shop.
I remember.
And she was there, and I hadn't
remember.
seen them for 30 years.
Yes, I recall that.
And I was like that skinny and had hair and no beard in those days. And then this massive monster.
Really, they
and
hadn't
she was
seen
scared.
you?
30 years.
They hadn't seen you in all that
No,
time?
I don't know. I completely
didn't know that.
No, I completely lost track of it.
Was that when we were down there with
Yes.
John Levine?
Yes. Yes. And so once she got over the initial shock, she thought I was going to kill her. This big, lumbering thing coming over to her. And she's like, oh, my God.
It is cassock.
So she said, look, I've got the shop's changed. I've got a new one now. You must come to it. So I said, yeah, I will. And then didn't, and then didn't, and then didn't. And then just before COVID, I thought to myself, let's just go down and have a look at the shop. So I drove to her new premises down there.
Honestly, at this present moment in time in this episode, give them a plug. It's fine. So where is this shop?
It's a Who shop.
We're yet to go there.
And they're in Upton Park on the Barking Road.
What can a serious Who fan expect?
Well, apart from the shop, obviously, where they've got stuff from all time things from. I mean, but of course, it's expensive when you go into old stuff like old.
Right. So is this like a classic collector's shop?
Everything. Yes, they've got everything, and also all the new stuff that comes out. So all the new character options.
They've been raiding B&M.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, they have to because you can't get anywhere else.
No,
and or we raid warehouses where things have got stored, or we raid, or we're offered
listeners,
collections.
When we use the word raid, we just mean that.
We jest.
We jest.
We jest.
He hasn't got his balaclava over.
No, quite haven't. But so the Who shop and they sell stuff. I mean, but obviously I'm not so much interested in merchandise, as you know. It's not really my bag. But when she went there, she's like, Toby, go through that TARDIS. I was like, why? She said, just go through it.
Go through the TARDIS.
So she's got two TARDISes in there.
Right.
One's the Elstree Studios original police box.
Right.
From Elstree Studios. It's used in Z-Class, Dixon and Doc Green, everything like that.
Wow.
And it was the reason why it's there is because Tom Baker's manager bought it and took it on the world tour to promote Doctor Who, and then Honda used it to sell motorbikes in the 80s. Right. So it's a lovely story. But then she's got the other prop. It's from the 1999 Doctor Who night because she supplied all the props for that show.
Right.
Because the BBC had nothing in those days.
Right.
So she said, go through it. I was like, what do you mean go through it? Just go through it. And so I went through it, and it goes into a museum. I was like,
Oh, right. So we're going through a TARDIS
into a museum.
Wow.
Okay,
cool.
and I don't want to spoil. I'm not saying what's in there because people need to go and see it themselves.
You keep asking us to come down.
And that's what I do. And she said, why don't you come? Why don't you when you're not doing your essay work? Why don't you come here and do museum tours? Because you like talking. Who knew? But
and you do have, although you say you don't, you do have quite a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, but the thing is, I am not a complete. This is where we come back to the first question: why I didn't think I was a super fan, because I don't know everything about Doctor Who.
Well, you said an example earlier on of a fan standing up and asking Tom Baker when you said this in this episode. That is, and I don't mean to be offensive to anybody. That's nerds. Nerds. If you look at the definition of what nerd is, one of the definitions is somebody who literally knows the minutia.
And they are about 6 or 7 years old now, when I have debates with the museum and lose. Okay, but I love that. Okay. I love the fact that kids are so passionate. They know.
So in our hunt for what is a superfan, I don't consider you need to be a total nerd to be a superfan.
I thought you had to be a completist, not a nerd, a completist.
Right.
You've got everything. You know everything. As in, there's Doctor Who episodes I haven't seen.
Yeah, but can't you
even classic ones I haven't seen?
Can't you love a subject such as Doctor Who and not have seen everything? Which is great because
of course you can.
Look forward
but for me, I didn't think that was a super fan. But I didn't get. You see, by the same token, I don't think anything I've done makes me a super fan. But the way you talk about it, I'm like, well, maybe not everyone's done that then.
Let's hop back over the fence then and say you're a fan looking in at Toby Jewell and say, well, this guy has met pretty much.
Yeah, but most people don't know this, though.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's only close friends and now all your listeners.
No, but they would say, I can't believe that this guy's met all of these Doctor Who actors.
But I haven't met any of the new Doctor Who's.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. My last Doctor I met was Paul McGann.
Okay, so he would come into the classic era.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
The TV,
it's classic.
The TV, mind you, I've had people that said, oh, that's not canon. But
there's loads. I don't. There's another thing. I don't understand canon, and that's why I don't think I'm a fan, super fan, because this canon malarkey.
Yeah, I mean, people argue about this.
If I
all the
like it, I
time.
like it. It's like the same as the TV movies. They don't say they're not canon,
But surely Superfan it's been having a healthy passion for something, would
perhaps,
you say?
yeah.
Because before it becomes an unhealthy obsession. But does a Superfan have to fill their house up with absolutely everything?
Well, I thought, yes, that was my idea of it before this. But maybe, you know...
But then as a fan would be saying, wow, you've done so many things.
I know,
and met so many people that...
And those are more important to me. The memories are more important than having merchandise.
Okay,
I agree with you.
So therefore, the memories for the super. I mean, you think of a fan who queues up at a con to meet their idol, if you like.
Yeah.
That it's the memory. Okay, they might
queue
up for 3.5 hours.
Yep.
Something I wouldn't do, but they might queue up for an autograph and a photograph.
Yeah.
And I know that they do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
But they're storing those memories up of those trips. You know, when they're talking to their friends, just like we are now, recounting those memories. So you kind of like building up, for want of a better word, a kind of a memory bank.
Yeah, true.
And those experiences. So, for example, you can say you've shown me photographs earlier on when you came into the studio for you with John Pertwee.
Yeah.
I've never met John Pertwee.
Yeah.
Bless him, I'm never going to meet John Pertwee because he's passed away. So, you know, fans will say, oh, well, you know, Toby's notched that memory up. I
sold Verity Lambert a pager as well.
Yeah, you
completely randomly.
You sold her a pager.
Yeah, I sold her.
Not recently, I think.
No, obviously when I was selling,
yep.
I was selling pages at one stage, and this lady came in. This is why I'm not a super fan, because I didn't know who she was.
Oh.
A lady came into the head office, and I was the only salesman in that day. They said, would you go and this lady downstairs wants a pager? I said, yeah, I'll deal with her. Lovely old lady. And I would chatting away. Didn't recognise her, and then Verity Lambert, yeah, fine, you know, la la la. And then she said, I don't know how we got on the subject of Doctor Who, but we got on the subject of Doctor Who. And she's like, oh, I've got something in my loft of Doctor Who. She said, would you want it? I said, oh, well, mine, that's all right. She said, I'll go and get it.
Wow.
So she came back with a Galaxy 4 gun. That was also in the Galaxy 4 gun. That was also in Genesis of the Daleks.
Wow.
Same one that's reused.
My question?
Yeah.
Have you still got it?
I haven't. I sold it at auction, but I know exactly where it is.
Okay.
It's in the Who Museum.
Oh, is that?
So I see it every single day. And I remember because I put it up for auction at one of my first. Because I actually ended up helping another guy run a couple of conventions. We ran 2 conventions in '93 and 94, 95. We did a 1-day Elcon in Aylesbury and a 2-day Elcon 2 in Birmingham. And so I got the whole experience of helping organising. I was part of the organisation of this, not the main person, part of the team. But we ran 2 conventions, and in the Birmingham one, I sat and was interviewed by BBC Midlands with me and the other guy Alex, who were running it. We sat in the Who-mobile for our interview.
Oh,
and I can't find that footage anywhere now. Again,
that's the silver
that's John Pertwee's awesome-looking monstrosity car, which I loved as a kid, of course.
I mean, which oh gosh, you're gonna have to remind me. Which episode was it where it's literally the whole episode is a chase?
I know.
That's all of the episodes, isn't it?
It's Planet of the Spiders.
Planet
it's episode 2.
It's episode 2, and it's literally the whole thing is an action chase all the way through. Yeah. That's where I remember that car.
Because he was stuck on Earth, wasn't he? He couldn't get away from Earth.
It took off, didn't it? And it
did take off, yeah. But it didn't take off when we had our interview. And it wasn't running when we were. Or was it running? I can't remember now.
Whatever happened to it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm going back to '95 now.
So you don't know where the car is?
I don't. Again, I lost everything to do with Doctor Who. When I left, I don't know.
No. I mean, being that you're in the museum.
All I know is that John Pertwee gave it to a fan.
Right, so it's maybe
because his mum died or something like that. So, and this fan must have been the one that brought it to RL. But this is 1995.
And have you seen it since then?
I don't know. Maybe. I was going to. I haven't followed everything, so I don't know again.
So obviously you're down there as the tour guide for the Who Museum in London.
Yeah.
So that leads me on to ask you about: have you been to other Who displays?
Sadly, this is a regret of mine. I didn't go to Longleat. I didn't go to Daypole. I didn't go to Cardiff, and I didn't go to Blackpool. And I didn't see the Ultimate Adventure either. And all of those things I regret now as an adult, but I thought I was far too cool to do those at that age when I could have gone to them. And and again, that's another reason why I don't think that Superfan would have probably done all those and have all the experiences of those.
Well, when Zach, I mean, I've got photographs of you sitting in Bessie.
Oh, yeah.
Up at Llangollen at Dapple.
That's Dapole, yeah.
Dapple.
How old was I then?
Oh, you were running around, so you must have been about 4, 5,
Yeah.
about 5. And they had a day where the Daleks were out zooming around.
Yeah.
And
Cybermen walking.
Do you remember
around.
it? Ish.
But that was when we took him in.
Yeah.
And we didn't know. We just randomly said, let's take Zach.
Yeah.
Because again, it wasn't like you had internet or anything.
No.
We probably didn't even have a computer when you were that age. But we heard about the museum, so we went there completely on the off. And then we had no idea that Colin Baker was there.
Oh, he was actually there that
He
day.
was there.
Yeah.
And so when we got the tickets to
Brilliant.
go in, and we were really pleased because all these Daleks was kind of out and about and doing stuff. To us, it was like we didn't know that this was anything special. And we went in, and the first room we went into was like the interior of the TARDIS with a TARDIS console, and there's Colin Baker sitting at a table.
Unbelievable.
And we just bought going in, which was unusual. We because normally do it at the gift
You
shop.
do normally go the way out, don't you?
But we saw these metal tin TARDIS plates, the ones at the front,
Yes.
public call box.
Yes.
So, and as a person who, like, as I told you earlier, I never queue up for people's autographs and things because I always see actors as being
quite.
another person. Who,
Yep.
But he was just signing stuff. He wasn't asking for any money for the signatures. It was like part of
the deal he got there.
So that was great. So we walked over and I said, completely, I didn't expect this. Can you sign this? So I got a picture of him signing it, and then he said, would you like a photograph? Oh, he was a real nice chap.
Yeah, he is nice.
So I took Zach round there, and there's me and Zach is bawling his eyes out at this point. And he's covered his face up, and he's refusing to show himself, and he's like, no. Turns out Zach thought we were giving him away.
I had no idea what was happening.
He thought we'd taken him to the museum and we were giving him to Doctor Who.
I took the one.
And he's like, I don't want to go.
Doctor Who reference there.
Yeah. the one experience I did go to was the one was the one at Olympia. They had an exhibition. I took my son there, and I looked back at the pictures the other day, and he's like that, and everyone.
Aww.
So it was dead. But there is one person I have stood in a queue as a fan and queued up to see, and there's also one band that I went to and completely geeked out the whole way through it. So the person I queued up to get a book signed was Adamant.
Oh yes.
Let's go right round the block on my own. I did that because
Zach understands.
Yeah.
I often listen to Adamant music, don't I? And
Yeah.
Although I have a terrible story about that when I was a teenager. I was going out with this young lady at the time, and she was really into Adamant.
What did you do?
Well, at the time, I was like a biker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm in my leathers and studs and all this. If you could imagine almost Vivian from The Young Ones.
Yes,
that was me. You know,
yeah,
had this flat top haircut, studs
yeah.
everywhere, and she was for her birthday. She really, really wanted Prince Charming the album.
Okay.
And I had to go into the record shop and ask, can I buy Prince? And I've never felt so embarrassed in my life to be standing there asking for Prince Charming by Adams and the Ants.
Well, here's a funny connection. The lady that runs the Doctor Who shop, she was an essay on that video. She was one of the dancers on that video.
Oh, brilliant!
And she's also in Return of the Jedi.
Was it Prince Charming that had Diana Dawes?
Yes,
it was.
Yes, it was. Yeah. But so, I mean, I had a lovely experience when I was looking after bands, because I looked after a band called Dime Stars, and the lead singer was Roxanne Wylde. It turned out to be Kim Wilde's little sister.
Oh yeah.
So I obviously got to meet, and then Roxanne told me that Adamant used to babysit her. And then I was speaking to Kim about things, and I got, all of a sudden I got an insight into a lot of the bands I loved from there.
I didn't mean to interrupt. You were telling us about you queuing up. So that was Adamant.
So the queuing up was Adamant, right. And then the record band I went to see and stood there, open mouthed, didn't move for the entire time of it, was Kraftwerk.
Oh, good old Kraftwerk.
And I saw them at the Brixton Academy in 2001, and I went with my Polish old school body. He was this side of me, and we stood like that. You might know, but these guys don't move on stage. There's no, they're robots. Yeah, but they have. But it's all about the artwork and the videography behind.
Oh, okay.
It's all in time music, and they create
cool.
the sound. So they do a track called Tour de France, and it's the bicycle cleats that are making the rhythm.
Huh.
Autobahns, cars, and anyway.
Autobahn.
Yeah, but I was standing there. There's a bloke next to me the whole way through, stood like that. And when it finished, I turned and said, "That was great, wasn't it?" He said, "Yeah, it was, wasn't it?" It was Damon Albarn from Blur. And he was just like me. We were fanboying on because Kraftwerk are one of the bands that you need to see before they die,
right?
Not before you die. But those are the only two times I feel I've really
Right.
geeked out or
Geeked
fanned
out,
out.
fanned out.
One was Adamant because he was my childhood. Looking posters on the wall was Adamant. I used to dress and I had all the tapes because it was tapes in those days for me.
Yeah. You see that again? I haven't had that moment.
Yeah.
I haven't had that moment.
For me, it was more music when I was younger. Music was more. I was more because I was in a band at school, a synthesizer band, and then I was also in a brass band.
Yes, you told me.
And from 7.
You went on
until,
tours everywhere.
Yeah. We've been on Blue Peter with that band. We won at the Albert Hall. That's why I went on Blue Peter.
Did you get a Blue Peter?
Yes.
Badge?
Yes.
Oh,
Twice.
Wow.
Twice.
We've got a double Blue Peter badge holder in the studio.
So I got my Blue Peter shield for being on it, and John Leslie trying to play my sousaphone. And then I was a runner-up in the competition, and I got the round Blue Peter competition badge and a round clapperboard with Blue Peter and a letter from 1980 from Billy Baxter and Simon Groom. I've got that, still got that. I'll show you the picture. I've got that at home.
Oh, wow.
So I've kept those. Yeah, so I because Blue Peter was in my day was a big thing.
It was the big thing.
It was a big thing, Blue Peter.
Get back from school.
Yeah.
Watch
Again.
that, because that was where, again, on the subject
Yes,
of Doctor Who, that's where you
Whomobile, the Daleks
I
were on
remember
it.
the clip with the Whomobile coming in and the Daleks coming
Did you hear
on.
when they made the Daleks though? Because they used to make things like they made Tracy Island.
Oh,
and they
gosh, yeah.
they made Daleks, and they're horrendous. But again,
sticky back plastic.
that's all we had, and we were talking earlier on today in the 70s.
Oh,
you
the
know,
amount of Weetabix.
Weetabix. Yeah, Mum, can you get Weetabix? Why do you want Weetabix? Oh, I love
Because
it.
it's got a Doctor Who.
No, but I couldn't tell her that because she wouldn't get it. I was like, because I love Weetabix.
Yeah.
I hated Weetabix.
But it's just like eating
Cardboard.
Yeah.
Or sawdust stuck together.
You have to put lots of sugar on it to make
But
it
that's,
edible.
that's another thing again from our age. It wasn't about the merchandise because there wasn't any.
No,
There wasn't any.
To have the fact that you could go and get a box of cereal.
Yeah.
That had a diorama on the back.
And you cut out your Dalek, you cut out your Doctor.
You had all these little, but basically they were cardboard.
They were cardboard.
Flat cardboard.
There's no
things.
other word for it. They were
And you
cardboard.
sat your
Yeah.
box on the table and then reenacted the.
Yeah.
Because I always remember the Silurian one, which was it had stalactites and stalagmites. It was like inside a cavern,
okay.
and you could, and it was just like boom.
But I do love that artwork.
Yeah.
There was, and I also they've redone a bookazine with all the Century 21 Dalek stories all in one bookazine. And it's like Dan Dare. The artwork in the 60s for Daleks was just like Dan Dare. And for me, there was something. And I was having this discussion with my brother, who is a graphic designer. And the issue now is that everything's too clean. It's too digital.
I do love the kind of 1950s sci-fi.
Yeah,
type of look.
yeah, 60s. But it's the colours as well. Those
50s,
muted colours.
Yeah.
Because he's into comics and
You think of
old
things
Spider-Man.
like
all those
the artwork for Forbidden Planet and things like that.
Oh my God, yeah. Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, and you can buy them now. The 50s. As I say, as I got older, I've found myself falling into watching 1930s sci-fi, black and whites, because it is out again. It's a story. I mean, you've got these rockets that are flying on string. You can see, and you've got them on these planets, but they're just in the desert.
Fireworks.
They're just in the desert, and it's literally a sparkler out the back,
out the back.
and they're going. But I'm just like, oh my God, it's so brilliant. Though.
It is.
It's so brilliant.
Yeah,
Buster Crabtree,
Do you
as
think Buster
Buck
Crab,
Rogers,
Buster Crab.
or as Flash Gordon.
Flesh Gordon.
Don't say that.
That's a completely different
That's
subject.
another conversation for another time.
Yeah. Should we get a Flesh Gordon fan in? What's a Flesh Gordon super fan? No! Let's not go there.
Wow.
Wow. So,
Anyway.
yes. So let's have a look at this. Where have we got to?
We've gone way off piece, as they say.
Is a superfan somebody who intrinsically has to queue up for hours to meet their idol? Is a superfan somebody who fills their whole house up with memorabilia?
I think that we can say that superfans are either hold on, can't we?
Superfan,
Just somebody who's
who's
passionate
got
about
such a passion about it and has had so many fantastic experiences.
Yeah.
Because again, a fan looking at you, Toby, and that's why we asked you to come in, would be saying, well, this guy actually works in the Who museum.
Yeah.
This guy, other things have come into mind. Not so long ago on television, there was...
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Now, what was the show?
Salvage Hunters.
Salvage Hunters.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, and there I was watching I'm watching Salvage Hunters, and this settee pops up, okay? And If you've ever seen it, it's kind of a settee made of many layers of leather, of a cream-coloured leather. And I was watching it, I thought, I recognise that. I recognise it for two reasons.
Yes.
One, because I've seen this settee on Doctor Who primarily on Robots of Death.
Yes.
Because that's where Leela and the Doctor are put in a room with
D84.
Yes, it.
Yep.
Am I wrong or right in thinking it also appeared on Doctor Who in something else?
It was in Time Lash, I believe, and it was also in Blake 7.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to say. And I also recognise it from Blake 7.
Logan's Run. It was using Logan's Run now.
Right, we'll have to.
I can't quantify that.
That's the film, not the series. Yeah,
the film.
Okay, so
the film, and I was told that by the researchers when they came.
So there I was watching the programme, and up pops this settee, and it's like, oh wow!
I know that.
That's a bit of Doctor Who and Blake 7 memorabilia.
Yeah. And
so they take it to an upholsterer to get it refurbished, and then they decide to go and talk to a specialist, an expert on Doctor Who. Who pops up? Toby!
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
So suddenly, I'm not a superfan. It's the Doctor Who expert on this TV.
Yeah, it's only that thing because I love that one episode, but also I'm sadly, and this also relates to my irritation with the House of Dragon, is that was filmed way over a year ago. When I was on heavy pencil I had to groom my hair and my beard, and I look like I can't tell you how bad I look on it, and then I get released from the House of Bloody Dragon, and I don't get.
So this time you're featured on there, and you look like you've just been pulled from the hedge backwards.
Yes, or I'm a vagrant. You know.
No, you're not a vagrant. You're a Doctor Who.
Yeah, well there you go. Yeah. I love that.
That's brilliant. So looking from the outside.
Yeah, no, okay. It's a fair cop, Gov. I think I've been rumbled.
So I mean, as a Doctor Who fan, which you are, I think it's fair to say that you are up there. You don't consider yourself a super fan, and we're on that journey to find out what that super fan is. So let's to sum up what we've learnt in this episode. I don't think that you have to fill your house up with every single thing under the sun to say that you're a super fan, but I think it's about passion and about experience as well. Yeah. Because I would imagine that somebody who say fills their house up with everything Doctor Who, because they love Doctor Who, they've watched Doctor Who, they've read Doctor Who, listened to Doctor Who, all the Big Finish Doctor Who, maybe gone to Comic-Cons and queued up for 3 hours for a 60-second signature and a photograph, but they actually haven't had really meaningful interactions.
I understand. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So anybody could do that.
And I went away and came back as well. That's the other thing. I mean, I had 30 years out of Doctor Who world. 30 years.
30 years out.
Out of it as well. When I was doing other things.
I thought you were 21.
Damn! I've done my calculations wrong. Damn!
So is it that you fill your house up and everything, or is it also partly about the experiences? And I would say that, Toby, you probably count yourself really lucky, the experiences that
absolutely.
You've been blessed with having.
Absolutely. You know,
because it sounds to me most of them were never planned.
No,
they've all come, have sort of fallen in your lap.
Yeah. I would resemble that remark quite a lot.
I've just fallen in your lap.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I think for our first episode on our journey of super fandom, I think we
had an enjoyable journey.
We've heard some stories.
Yeah, and this brings us to a part of the show which we call our 6 quickfire questions.
Right.
Now, this is where we have 6 questions to ask you. Putting you on
this
the spot
wasn't
here,
the script.
Putting you on the spot here, Toby.
Yeah.
Are you happy to go ahead with the 6 quickfire questions?
That gun Zach's pointed at me means, of course, I'm happy.
I thought you were just pleased to meet him.
No. It's too small in here. Come on.
Well, it's getting a bit tight. Yeah.
Easy.
Right. Okay. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Question 1.
Yes.
What has been your favourite Doctor Who story ever?
Well, that is very, very, very easy for me, and that's the Robots of Death.
Before I move on to the next question, can you tell us, as a Doctor Who fan, why?
Yeah, because it's the story that linked me from a child to an adult. It's the first one I saw as an adult that I remembered as a child, but I remembered it incorrectly. So I watched it as a child and loved it, but thought they were Cybermen. Watched it as an adult and saw they were Voc robots, complete individual. Then was amazed at the set, the Art Deco set, the look of the robots.
The settee.
The set, well, that was one of them because I love that. You know, all that.
Yeah.
I love 70. I've got a 70 settee.
Yeah.
Nothing like that one. It's a brown leather one, but that kind of style.
But that story drew you in.
It totally did. And to see it, to be the first story to see as an adult, that was the only story I remembered as a child, that doesn't happen every day.
Yeah, superb.
Yeah.
Question 2.
Yes.
What's your most memorable moment as a Doctor Who fan?
I don't think I've had it yet.
Okay.
Because I've got... I mean, every time I did something, that would have been my most memorable time, and then I did something else on it. And now, it's horrible to think because you've done so many.
Is there anything that suddenly go? Do you know that was really special?
I mean, doing the early days of being involved in the film fans, the downtime and the air zone, because again, there was nothing like that in those days.
Yeah, I can see how.
There was absolutely nothing like it.
I can see how you'd be like, wow.
And you come along and do this.
Jaw on the floor.
Yeah, and you'll be part of it. It's like, wow.
Brilliant. Okay, question number 3. Who is your favourite Doctor?
Tom Baker. Because I grew up with Tom Baker.
This is a 2-part question. So, Tom Baker.
Yes.
And who is your favourite Doctor Who villain?
The Robots of Death.
So,
obviously.
So... But the villain, the robots technically weren't.
Yeah, so
bad.
Taron Capel was the villain. So, and in fact, I'll spin that round. I'll spin that round because and a lot of people have always said that D84 should have joined the Doctor as a companion, and there was a time where he was going to.
Yeah,
right.
that would have been
fantastic. But I love the Master. Mm-hmm. I love the Master as a character, and I've always loved the relationship between. And I'm talking about the Delgado Master, and a lot of people have hatred for the Ainley Master, but I don't. Because I remember a lot of him, and I just like the polite. Again, in our era, even the foes were polite. But again, now recapping as an adult, watching back, I was never frightened with the Daleks ever, even as a child. But having watched the early episodes of the Cybermen, like the 10th Planet now, I think they will be far more frightening.
They're very creepy, aren't
they? And I think that's and also the technology of creating the voices and stuff would have been.
I think when it comes to the Daleks, for me, is again I'm going to sidetrack a little bit, but again, looking at Doctor Who and the sets, looking at Blake 7 as well, because I love Blake 7. And you looked at the sets where they've used things like toothpaste tubes.
I know.
And things.
But those are brilliant things.
Yeah, and of course the technology at the time meant that all the displays had to be.
Well, we like wobbly sets and collars, didn't we? We were happy with those.
They all had to be. They all had to be the CRT TVs. And usually with like a ping pong game on it.
Yeah.
But my imagination took me to this is the far future.
Yeah, exactly. It did.
But it didn't look like. You look at it now, and people would say, "Well, that's kind of really retro," but it wasn't. It was.
Well, no, wasn't.
You had to imagine touchscreen.
We touched it when we were looking at the 1930s idea of the future. In these ones, we've seen what their idea of the future was. So it's all relative.
And you see these kind of things, and you think, "Wow, this is fantastical." But when it comes to the villains, I actually really quite liked Derek Jacobi's.
You see, that's why I don't know anything. I haven't watched any. I haven't really watched any of the modern ones that I remember. I watched Eccleston and I watched Tennant at the time.
Right. It's probably because again Zach was.
Yeah, you would have done. Yeah.
Fell into watching classic Who.
Exactly.
Just as New Who.
I did like the Swarm.
I love that.
I thought that was a brilliant character, and I did also like the Sontarans being in the Crimean War. No spoilers. I thought that was a genius, and making them look more war-torn now.
Oh, were you talking about when you say the Swarm? What were we referring to?
Oh, the new one.
You're
thinking about the other Swarm.
I'm thinking you're talking about the classic Swarm.
From the Invisible Enemy.
The Invisible Enemy. No. There's Classic Who.
I haven't seen it. I told you before. I haven't seen all Classic Who.
Oh, you haven't seen it.
That's why I don't consider myself to be a superfan, because even all the classics I haven't seen.
So is this making me more of a superfan?
Yes, you're showing yourself up, young man.
I don't necessarily consider that's the case though, because you've had so many other experiences.
Yeah, because my experience again weren't actually to do with what most of my experiences aren't to do with watching the show. It's being part of it, as in is in the fan side of it, with organising conventions and meeting people, or actually, taking tours of people around museums and things like that. So that's more of my angle, and being involved in some of the fan films.
Right. So,
Anyway,
we've
we've gone right off there again.
This
Terrible.
This is probably the slowest 6 quickfire question session we've had.
When you say quickfire, you mean 6 very slowly delivered questions and even slower answers.
Yes. I don't mind. On this particular episode, you can go as long as we like. I don't care.
You can cut everyone else's out because this is the first one. You can't do that.
Now, you showed us some photos and some stuff earlier when you
Yep.
came into the studio.
Yep.
So question 4, what is your favourite piece of Doctor Who memorabilia that you either
That
have
I own
or have owned?
I haven't. I mean, because all my collecting is based on Robots of Death, so I haven't owned anything screen used. I've got a tiny piece of the sofa that was used on that show.
Right.
And that's screen used. That tiny piece of that sofa, and that's very special.
If you had to take one piece of whatever you own these days, you had to take one piece to a desert island. Is that what you choose to take with you?
Well, it's the only thing that's ever been on the show.
Okay.
All my other heads are taken from the molds, original molds and stuff. I've got very rare statues. I've got some 80s statues that were done by a lady called Susan, someone which are very rare and stuff. And I've got loads of things like that. But at the end of the day,
that little bit of settee, just
because it's used. It's screen used. That's
right.
it's screen used as part of it.
So could this?
And I know the story of it. I've seen that story being from the damaged sofa that's brought in to then being restored. And these were off strips that were thrown away that another person went and bought.
Right. So this little piece of memorabilia,
because it's been used in the show,
could be used on the show. So again, maybe is that touching on maybe a Superfan trait there,
or a heartstring, because it's my everything that hinges on this one episode that I remember from a child to an adult. It's all about nostalgia for me.
Okay.
It's that nostalgic thing. I've got loads of other bits of Doctor Who stuff, and I've showed you some today. I've got other things that and some 60s. I've got Rollikins. I've got some really obscure bits and bobs. But if I think about it, that's the only screen used.
Well, okay.
Screen used in that episode in the 70s.
Right. I can feel your passion.
Well, that's all I've got, mate. That's all I've got.
I think he's a super fan.
No,
I think he's a super fan too, but don't tell him.
Damn.
Okay,
Can't get out either. I'm booked in here.
Question 5. Okay, you might want to take a moment to think about this. What's your most interesting Doctor Who piece of Doctor Who trivia that most people wouldn't know about? Because you've had a lot.
I've got so many stories, and most of them came from Tom Baker.
Okay,
but I will recount one. Because it's and am I allowed to swear on this?
Yes, you can swear.
Okay, and it's in the context
there is a swear warning coming up.
Yes, then it's the context of how the story was told to us by Tom Baker. So we were having dinner with Tom Baker, and he was recounting one of his many stories. And this is the time he lived in Ashford. He lived in a converted school next to a churchyard. And Tom has famously bought his own tombstone, and it's got Tom Baker 1914, and the rest is blank on it. And it used to sit up on the side of the wall of the church. Now, Tom was telling us that he's got a penchant for mowing. He likes mowing. So he said, I was, his big booming voice he does, I was mowing up and down the back garden, and I thought, I need to mow some more today, Tom. Let's go and mow round the church. So I mowed round the side, mowed round to the church, and then I saw someone kneeling by my gravestone. I said, Tom, have you died? I'm not sure. So I mowed back to my wife. I said to my wife, have I died? She said, don't be so bloody stupid, Tom. So I said, okay then. So he mowed back, and the person had gone. He looked down, and they'd written wanker on his tombstone.
Oh, no. No.
How could they do that?
Oh, no.
I hope he managed to scrub that off.
Oh, but I mean, that was told us by Tom. So
oh, bless him.
Whether it's poetic license there or not.
You've answered the question. Okay, this one, last question. This is a simple one.
Yeah.
Question 6. Russell T Davies or Chris Chibnall?
There
you go. There we go. That's answered those not quite so quick fire questions.
And not so quickly answered.
It's been absolutely brilliant having you in the studio.
Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed myself as well.
I hope you will come back again.
Oh, I'd love to.
Oh, yeah.
Any subjects. I'm just up for this now. It's great to have a chat with my mates.
That's basically what the Now We Know show's all about. It's just have the everyday person.
And you'll find out people know a lot more about things than you even think they know.
And it's for us to learn stuff and for the listeners to learn things about subjects. And it's been
great listening in. You've had some
I
really
mean,
cool stories.
I noticed Zach has been completely absorbed all the way through this.
It's so bad. I can't shut up. That's my problem.
Listening to listening to 2 old boys having a good old chinwag.
Oh, my younger days.
It's great because I get to listen to this all again.
Yes, because he's got to edit it.
Oh, God, my God, yeah. Do you drink while you do it?
He waits until we we do a taste testing session.
Yeah.
I think the next one is the wine and cheese.
Ooh, wine and cheese.
We've said it now, so we have to do that.
Or I don't know. Well, I don't know. We've got several lined up, listeners. Wine and cheese, mead, whiskey.
Actually,
whiskey distilleries, please send us whiskey samples.
It might be Halloween treats.
Halloween treats.
It's coming down the corner, isn't it now?
Yeah. We've actually got special guests coming in to tell us all about vampires,
werewolves.
We've got the. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that one, but we're going to be doing the taste tester on Halloween.
Candy.
And then, of course, Halloween tradition.
Yes.
Just before
Because
Halloween.
again, in our age, there was none in the 70s.
Now, you say that.
Didn't have any where I grew up. Nothing.
We did.
Nothing
used to have
Really?
Halloween parties.
Goodness
Even
me.
when I was a young kid, no trick or treating.
Never,
no
nothing.
trick or treating.
Nothing.
But we used to have family Halloween
Wow.
parties. My dad, and I'll probably go over this again in the Halloween one, but he used to put garden netting up on all the ceilings.
Fair play. He was a
and
visionary.
Hang rubber spiders and snakes. You know the rubber snakes we always used to
I
have as
do
kids?
remember those.
They
Yep,
used to be
yep,
there, and we do change the light bulb. I mean, change the light bulb for a red light bulb.
Brilliant.
So it looked
Brilliant.
Like a tar's parlour from outside, probably. And then all the cherry aid, as we called it.
Yeah, I loved it. Can't get it anymore though.
No, but we used to call it bat's blood.
Did you?
Bat's blood, and we had all the
I call it pop.
all things like ogres. Yeah, what are those all those cheesy snacks you get? They were like a pastry with cheese on the top, like a
Cheese twists.
something like that. Yeah,
okay.
but they
Well,
were ogres' fingers.
never had any of that.
But we always used to have family Halloween parties and invite friends around. But
Brilliant.
but
no
trick or treat
trick-or-treating,
never
no.
existed.
We'll consider this a teaser.
Yeah.
Yes. Teaser.
Anyway.
Thought we've digressed again.
Bloody hell. Let's finish off this session. I think, Zach, haven't you got a flashback?
For this Now We Know Show flashback, we had a comment from the Geocaching Explorer couple.
And what was that?
And they said, "Hi guys, myself and the missus took a very long drive to the Lake District for a mini holiday and came across your podcast on Spotify. It helped with the long journey, excellent content. Pity there were next to no geocaches where we were staying. It's not very often that I subscribe to a YouTube channel, but I'll make a special dispensation for this one."
Hey,
So that's very
excellent.
nice.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. It's
That's very kind of
greatly
you.
appreciated for the support.
Yeah, we love the feedback.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
That's a Curse of Peladon goodbye from Buzz.
That's a Tom Baker goodbye from Zach.
That's a I heard a cry from Toby Jewell.
Goodbye!
Bye.
Now
We know, show in the time vortex.
Now we know in the Doctor Who Museum with Toby.
Please let me out now.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. Check out the Zach Wylde Productions social media pages on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, or visit the Zach Wylde Productions website at www.zachwyldeproductions.com. Please get in contact, we'd love to find out how you're listening to us. So get in touch in the comments and don't forget to check out Zach Wylde Productions on Patreon to become an official ZWP patron today.